Recently, in the last couple of months, I lost my father. He passed away in a car accident. And so that's now my second parent, my final parent that's passed away. And what was interesting about the experience of grieving for my father is how different it was, firstly, to the process of losing my mother, which is the most obvious comparison because, one parent for another. And sure, I'm a lot older now and hopefully better at managing my emotions. But I don't think it's just that. I think that the experiences, firstly, of having lost my mother and then at a later stage having lost my husband, someone that I really loved, and having gone through all the coping mechanisms I needed in order to pull myself through that really, really dark phase in my life, that I almost found it so much easier to cope with the loss of my dad. And I don't want to downplay that in any way and make it seem like that I don't miss my dad or I don't love my dad. I do enormously. I think about both my parents almost every single day and I miss them tremendously. And the thought of everything that's happening in my life right now and everything that ever will happen in my life and that they won't be there to experience that is heartbreaking. Honestly, I am devastated that I lost my parents, but the way that I approached that grief and that loss is worlds apart. I didn't have the same in fact, I didn't have any self-destructive reflex as a result of my father passing away. I was fully prepared for how I might regress emotionally. So when days seemed to be better and then suddenly get worse, it didn't freak me out in the least. I was like, oh, but this is how grief happens. You seem like you're getting better, you regress a little bit, but each regression is easier than the last time you regressed, and all the progress you make is further. So I was prepared for that. And the mechanisms I needed in order to move forward, it's like I'd practiced them so hard with through the divorce that they were almost second nature to me now. And what surprised me about that was just that it made me realize a few things. But firstly, that I could probably get through anything now, I think. Because even if a curveball comes, I have already got a fairly strong base set of skills for managing grief. And if I needed additional ones, I would only need the additional ones. So I just have to work on that, not everything else I've worked on. So I'm already ahead for, I feel like, anything that can come my way in the first place. And then, secondly, that I didn't realize that I really could learn and grow from an experience that difficult. I know people tell you that you'll learn and they'll tell you that you'll grow, but it's hard to believe when you're in it because when you're in it, you just feel like you're being crushed. And it's amazing to be this side of that experience and to look back and see it wasn't a little bit of growth, like it was a massive amount. I'm a different person now, a better person, a stronger person, a person that can be there for other people that have to deal with something as difficult as that, a person who can be sympathetic and empathetic. And that is remarkable for me because I think unless you're in a very crushing situation, it's hard to. I mean, that might sound trivial, but I mean, when you're in it, you feel no good could ever come of this. Nothing. And it's almost annoying when people tell you, oh, but what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But it's remarkable when you sit on the side of it and you think, I didn't know that I had that much capacity for growth or that I even needed it. I didn't even realize I still needed to grow so much. And I probably need to grow even more. But I'm not afraid of that now because I know I can cope with enormous amounts of loss. And I know that I can be a strong, healthy, and happy person. And the best is that I can tell you that I can't actually believe how happy I am now. If I think of how devastated I was before and how my future felt so bleak and unbearable, it's remarkable to me that I didn't realize I could be this happy, actually, that I could be this content with my life, and that I could see the future as brightly as I see it now. So it's, I know, a difficult experience for anyone to go through. Nobody knows better than me how hard it is to go through the grief of loss, of parents, of a spouse. But yeah, I must say that it's just shown me that really time and a little bit of effort, a lot of efforts, it's not just a little bit of effort, through time and a lot of effort, you really can come out the other side as a better, stronger version of yourself.
It sounds as though loss has been a really, really big theme in most of your adult life. And you have found very, very pragmatic ways of coping with it and very useful ways as well that have gotten you to the place that you are right now. But if you had to make sense of all this loss that has happened in the last 15 plus years of your life so far, what would be the golden thread?
I feel the golden thread that probably would run through my experience of loss, from my mother's death through to my divorce, through to now my father's death, and everything in between. I mean, I've lost jobs in between, and I've lost friends in between. These are just the three outstanding occasions, but I mean, there's been smaller episodes in between. And I think one of the things that, or this golden thread that has helped me persevere through all of this, is simply that I keep driving forward. I don't, and that was hard for me. It was hard to keep driving forward when you don't feel it. I mean, there were days I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. And there were days I was too depressed to get out of bed. The thought of it was just overwhelming. And what helped me a lot, especially with getting out of bed, is routine helps a lot to help you get through those things. But I have this need to keep moving forward. Like, I don't want to be someone that gets stuck somewhere. And so I would keep pushing forward. And that's why I would read up a lot and find out what's the next step I can take. One of them was even, they said, yeah, you should stop feeling sorry for yourself. And this was during my divorce. And I was like, that's good advice. I do feel sorry a lot. And then I'd also catch myself in it and be like, oh, you're doing it again. You're feeling sorry for yourself. And I was like, okay, time to stop doing that. We don't feel sorry for ourselves anymore. But yeah, so that, I must say, I think helped me a lot to get through this, was to move forward. I think the other thing that joins all of those experiences together is simply that it's pretty much the base of your world collapses in a way that was unexpected and you weren't prepared for. So when my mom passed away, I was young. I had to help with my sister, who was still at school. I had to help her go dress shopping for her Deb's ball and sign slips for her at her school and make sure she had all her stationery. It was a lot to deal with over and above my own grief. And all of a sudden, the person that was going to make my wedding dress and be there when my kids she was gone. And it was impossible to think of how life could continue from there. And I had that exact same experience when my ex left. And to a far lesser extent with my dad, I think just because I was prepared for that feeling. So I did have that feeling, but perhaps not in such a devastating way. With my dad, it was more like, he's not going to be here from now on. And that sucks. And I'm sad about that. But it wasn't as devastating as before, because I almost knew the drill, if I can put it to you that way. So I think in a really weird sort of way, it's almost like I've had practice dealing with loss, which might sound a bit sad, and maybe it is a bit sad, but it's like having lost so much unexpectedly and unnecessarily over time has just made me more prepared for the emotions that are coming the next time it happens. And I can almost shortcut to the coping mechanisms I need to get through each stage, because it's like I'm old hat at this now. So hopefully it's not something I'll have to deal with again in the very near future. But yeah, that's unfortunately the reality.
And if there was one statement or comment that you would share with anyone that was watching this, what would that be?
The one thing I would share with anyone who's watching this is, whether or not you've been through a divorce or not, is try not to invalidate people's feelings. I actually can't stress how important that is. Um, if you haven't been through a divorce, it's okay that you don't know what that person is dealing with, but it's really hard. It's harder than you could imagine. So, although you can't relate, that's okay, but that doesn't give you the right to invalidate what that person is going through. And the truth is, you set them back and you make it harder for them to move on. It's not easier. It's not easier if you tell them to just get over it. People don't just get over difficult things. So that's one important thing for people that haven't been through it and can't relate. For those that are going through it at the moment, I would say definitely avoid people that invalidate your feelings, as I've said, because it does just set you back. And you don't need that. Honestly, what you need is a lot of self love. And you need to, someone gave me some really great advice that stood me well at the time, but I still apply it today. They said to me that in life, you juggle a lot of balls. And some of those balls are made out of rubber. And if they hit the ground, they bounce to the edge of the room. And you can pick them up later if you want to. But some of those balls are made out of glass. And if you drop them, you've lost something you can't ever get back. And things that are made out of glass are your career, your relationships with close family members, anything that is incredibly important. And what you need to do is identify the difference between a rubber ball and a glass ball. And if you are busy juggling a ball that's made out of rubber and you're struggling to cope, let that one go. If it's not a critically important relationship like that with your children or your parents or your whoever's close to you, let that ball just, and you can pick it up at a later stage. Don't try to prioritize things that don't need priority. You need to focus on yourself. That's really important. You need to focus on yourself, where you're going, and your own recovery. And you have to work through a lot of emotions, like a lot. Emotions you didn't even realize you were ever going to have to work through. Weird emotions, even. So that's the kind of thing you need to prioritize and think about.
Vicky, thank you very much for sharing your story.
Thanks, Dolph.